Welcome to Kent Hance, the best storyteller in Texas podcast. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. That way you'll be notified every time we release a new episode. Also follow us on Instagram at Best Storyteller Podcast. Chancellor Hance, get us started with your saying of the day.
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And we're going to go over some of the get even possibilities from BuzzFeed. But first, I want to talk a little about political and the polls and the Olympics. Olympics got off to a bad start. Some people saying, well, it was miscategorized, that the Last Supper, and it was really a celebration of bringing people together from the Greek, and I don't believe that.
I hadn't heard that. They're trying to position this as an example, the Last Supper scene as an example of how people from all walks of life can come together.
But they're saying it was a Greek
Last Supper.
Last Supper. It wasn't the Christ, and it didn't have anything to do with that. But they had a youngster there, and they had, there was just a lot of bad things. They were trying to say it was meant to bring people together. Mm-hmm. Give me a break.
It missed the mark.
Missed the mark, and they didn't. That wasn't where they were headed.
Boy, you compare that one to the games when they lit the torch with the flaming arrow.
Yeah,
and how much it's changed over the years. It's crazy.
It really is. And I just read on the internet there are people boycotting, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the main thing in selling any product, you want to try to avoid controversy. And you don't want to pick sides in a woke campaign. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. Maybe the people that did the Budweiser ads, they'd hired them to do the opening of the Olympic, but they didn't get off to a good start.
But they figured all our tickets are already sold. What do we care if we offend anybody, right?
People who bought those tickets are going to show up,
Yeah.
regardless of what happened. There's so much going on politically. Democratic conventions in a couple of weeks, and people are saying she's ahead in the polls, or that Harris is, or that Trump is, and the polls it's too early to be that accurate, and polling's not as accurate as it used to be. I did some polling in my first campaign, and we didn't have any money, and so I got a guy named Don Boucher to run a poll for me, and he had talked to a pollster, and the pollster said, do the poll the same way every time. If you're making a mistake, that's okay. But if you do it the same way every time, you'll see a trend. And that's the reason you poll, to see trends. Some people will poll to be able to use it to go raise money. So the polls show we're ahead, and they try that. But we were doing polls that showed we didn't have much name ID, and as we went on television, and it had been on television for a couple of weeks, that was disappearing, and we were able to set up the trends and see what the trends were. And you also everybody had a home phone. Nobody had a cell phone, so you were calling home phones, and you say, well, which ones do you call? You call 635, you can go to the phone book and take the first name on the left-hand side in the first column, and do that with every page. And then when you run out, go back to the first and do it again. Mm-hmm. And then poll them again in 3 weeks or a month or whenever. But a base campaign will show you what issue may be out there and what issue may not be. Mm-hmm. You may think something's a big issue, and it may not be. And so that's one of the reasons you poll and try to find out where the voters are headed. And that's a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't do that. You'll find that out as you get out and campaign. People are going to tell you what they think. Mm-hmm. And but in a presidential campaign, you're not going to get a lot of that because they're not going to be out there talking to each potential voter. They're going to go out and make a speech and then leave. So they're not going to get input from the crowd. But if you're polling the same, you're developing trends. And the trend I had in 1974 showed that we were unknown, In the last poll we did, it showed that I was going to win by 8 points, and I beat the guy 54-46.
And do you remember how getting excited when you saw that trend of name ID going up?
Oh,
You're like,
yeah.
hey, it's working.
Yeah, I still say this, I've said it on the show before, that the most exciting thing when you run for office, and you've never run before, is when you see a bumper sticker on a car and you pull up and you don't know the people driving the car. Usually it's an aunt or an uncle or a relative or a friend or something. Mm-hmm. But if you don't even know them, you get excited. Somebody that I don't know is for me. Mm-hmm. And so that's, that's bumper stickers are not used. They don't produce that much help one way or the other than establishing name ID. But if you're going to do that and you're going to use some bumper stickers, then get the word out to everybody in the campaign and get them a bumper sticker and tell them to put them on a certain day, usually a Monday. Mm-hmm. And then if you add in a town the size of Lubbock or Tyler, and you had 200 people put on a bumper sticker, and they all did it the same day, people think, golly, what's happening? And so they'll take it to, look at.
Well, you tell this. You've told the story before, but it's one of my favorite Hance stories about campaigning at the beauty shop. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, it was in Plainview, Texas, and I went to a beauty shop, and I went in, and they were all getting their hair fixed and everything. It was a Saturday morning, and I went around and introduced myself and gave them a card and everything. There was a lady in there that I knew, and she followed me out. She said, Kent, we're for you. Said, my husband's your finance chairman in this county, and we've had a coffee for your wife, and my son-in-law is running your campaign in this county. So I don't want you to take me wrong, but don't ever come back to a beauty shop to campaign. They don't want to be seen like that. Their hair's wet. They don't look good. If you want to stand outside and give them a card when they leave, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But don't come inside and hand out cards. And I hadn't thought about it. Told my wife later, and she went, yeah, no. The lady gave you good advice, dummy. Don't be going in there campaigning while they're getting fixed. They don't want to be seen then. Okay.
Lessons learned on the campaign trail.
You learn a lot of things, dude. And I learned not to campaign at the wrestling matches in Odessa. That's right. There's a lot of violence in the air. Yeah. And I was outside, and I was passing out cards. People were leaving, and the guy says, were you for Tokyo Joe? And I said, sure. And he said, I wasn't, big boy. And I said, oh, that Tokyo Joe. I was for a different Tokyo Joe. And I fled the scene. I got out of there, knowing that wasn't a real happy group.
Yeah, campaigning can be humbling, can't it?
It can be.
Yeah.
This week, BuzzFeed put out a list of things that people did in breaking up with someone. And I wrote a few of them down. One lady, she broke up with her husband, or he dumped her one morning as he left for work. And so while he was gone, she cut the crotch out of all of his pants and jeans and everything, and put them out in the front yard, and said also put a sign out said free porno videos from, and put his name. And so she was pretty bitter. Another one, this was very creative. The lady the guy left and was coming back that night and told her to get out that day. And so she took all the light bulbs, even the light bulb in the refrigerator, took them all out and put them in a bag and hid them. Mm-hmm. Left them in the house, but hid them where she knew he'd never look. And he was pretty bitter about it.
I wonder how long it took him to figure that one out.
I don't know, but she had probably been thinking. I would think if you come up with that fast, you've been thinking about it for some time.
Yeah.
What if he leaves, or what if I leave, or what am I going to do?
Or she got on the phone with one of her girlfriends, and her girlfriend's
somebody had read about it and said, that's what you ought to do. One, they had condiment bottles, for ketchup and for mustard and mayonnaise in the refrigerator. And she took them and squeezed them all over the rugs and the carpet and hardwood floors. and that caused some damage. I mean, that's not going to be easily done. And then another one, they looked the guy up that, this was after a while. She was living with a new guy, and they looked him up, and he had a warrant for his arrest. So they called the police and told him where he was, and he got arrested. Another one was the fella put on the internet on Facebook picture of his new girlfriend, but they were going to some kind of concert in another city, and she knew where he liked to stay in that city, and so she waited the day before the concert, and she called the hotel and canceled his reservations.
This is a group of people that clearly haven't listened to this podcast and heard you say bury the dead and move on.
Yeah, bury the dead and move on. Yeah. I mean, that's a great dead issues, dead romance or whatever. Move on.
Mm-hmm. Hey, before we move on to the next thing, I'd like to let everybody know something. We've got an exciting interview coming up for next week. Later this week, we're going to be in Houston, and we're going to interview Vicki Hollop.
Vicki Hollop is CEO. She's the first woman to be CEO of a major oil company. She's CEO of Occidental Petroleum. Warren Buffett's been one of her biggest investors, and she has done great. Mm-hmm. And somebody forgot to get her over the side. She went to the University of Alabama in petroleum engineering. Somebody forgot to get her over the side and said, you can't do that. You can't be CEO of it. But she's had a remarkable career. You'll really enjoy listening to her next week.
Yeah, look forward to that next Monday with Vicki Hollop. That's going to be a really interesting interview discussion. And I like it because you two have been friends for quite some time.
She's a good friend and a good person and has done an excellent job as CEO. Stupid criminals. 2 weeks ago, a guy flew into Seattle, and they caught him with drugs, a lot of drugs, in his suitcase on a Tuesday. He flew out of Seattle, headed to the Netherlands on Friday. They caught him again, same suitcase, and, had drugs in it again. So he got 2 federal offenses in 1 week at the same airport doing the same thing. And his lawyer may have a good chance of insanity. Mm-hmm. Judge, we're going to plead him insane at this time, and we'll put him on the stand and let him answer a few questions so y'all will know he's insane.
How did he even get to the airport by Friday? If he got arrested on Tuesday,
got out on bail,
and then had his passport,
raised the bail, had somebody get him out, and decided what he lost on Tuesday he needed to make up by Friday, so he headed back to the Netherlands to take some drugs with him so that he could sell them there. He's a traveling salesman, evidently, and got caught up at the wrong time.
He probably thought, what are the odds of them catching me twice in a row?
Yeah. Yep. They were pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Also in Stupid Criminals, there was a woman in the military that stole over $100 million from the government in the Army, and was sentenced to 15 years. And the crazy thing about it, why did it take them so long? How did she get to stealing over $100 million before they caught her?
Do you know how long it was going on for? Because that would take a while. I mean, $100 million going out the door right away, someone's going to notice, but little bits at a time over, years and years.
6 years.
6 years.
She stole it over 6 years, and but you look at that, and you're looking at about $17 million a year, and so someone should have caught that. The audit team was not working very well. There were 4 armed robbers in Los Angeles got caught after one of them posted on Instagram holding some of the cash. And these guys wonder how they caught us. Mm-hmm. Wonder how stupid you are. How much time we got?
We are at 18 and a half.
I looked in the AR-15 rifle was used by the assassin in Butler, Pennsylvania. and that there is a report out, and Washington Post said that 1 in 20 adults, or roughly 16 million people in the United States, own an AR-15.
That's a big number.
Oh, it's a huge number. It surprised me.
There's not that many people hunting hogs.
No. You know? On my ranch, I had some guys hunt hogs in a helicopter.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they just would shoot. But, look, you're not going to put a dent. And, I mean, you can shoot 500 today, and they'll be replaced in a few months. They'll be back.
Yeah.
And they are a nuisance, a big nuisance.
They'll destroy a lot of property, that's for sure. They'll
destroy a lot
everything.
of property and
fences
and just tear things up. They're unbelievable.
Were the guys in the helicopter using AR-15s to shoot the hogs? Yeah.
And one time they were telling me about one of their friends used a Thompson submachine gun that was hunting hogs out of a helicopter. So, you know,
I've done it. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's not with a Thompson, but it's fun.
You can chase them around. You got to make sure that the pilot is watching what he's doing and doesn't get to watching you shoot hogs and fly into the ground or something.
And make sure you're harnessed in.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people saw the questioning of the director of the Secret Service. Now, look, if you go to a meeting of a congressional committee and AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene are on the committee and they're taking the same position, you got real problems. Real problems.
Yeah.
And everyone was after her, and she resigned the next day. Pat Fallon, a friend of mine, U.S. Congressman from Northeast Texas, North and Northeast Texas, he really asked some good questions, and he had gone out the week before and shot a gun off a roof at 150 yards, and one with a certain type of scope and one without the scope. Out of 16 shots, he was on target 15 of those 16 shots. And he had good information, and he had tried it. Mm-hmm. And I still say that there'll be a story from the FBI, and there'll be a story. You know, when the FBI director didn't help himself when he insinuated that, well, it may not have been a bullet, it may have been something else. Mm-hmm. Does it matter? But it was a bullet, and they had to issue an apology. And the FBI, they can't understand why they get, hit on pretty hard by the Republicans. When there's some background there. Mm-hmm. But the committee made it abundantly clear that she was not going any place in the future for approval.
Do you think that when she went in there for that hearing that she thought she could save her job?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise...
she'd have resigned ahead of time. Yeah. I'd have been smart enough to know that.
Yeah.
But I could have told her, when you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC on the same side, you got major problems. If you've got everybody between them, that means you've got everybody.
Right.
I mean, one of them's the extreme on the right and one of them's the extreme on the left. And they were both after the director. And she didn't have good answers on a lot of the stuff. Had she talked to the agents, had she discussed it, did they do this, did they do that? And a lot of her answers, well, the FBI is doing an investigation, you'll find out later, things like that. And that wasn't what they wanted to hear. They wanted to hear, how did this happen? And how can you make sure it doesn't happen again? And as I mentioned last week, I was glad that Biden finally gave protection to Kennedy. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was, if somebody had shot him, Biden would have been guilty of being accomplice, because he kept saying that he wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And Kennedy needed the protection because there's some nut out there that says, well, his dad and his uncle got killed. I might do that. You get to thinking there's 370 million people, and if you had one there's 3.7 million people were crazy, and 1% of those were really fringe people. You're talking about a lot of people, and that you have to be prepared for them. That if they're willing to give up their life, there's all kinds of things they can do, all kinds of damage.
Congressman Fallon wrapped up his questioning with the line of the hearing when he told her, "Go back to guard Doritos."
Yeah, you can go back. She was with Pepsi, and so a lot of people said, "What?" She went from guarding Doritos to guarding presidential candidates and presidents and vice presidents.
Yeah.
And they have a separate style that they use when they've got the president. But still, why didn't they have somebody on that building or searching the building, and they weren't communicating with each other? No. 5 minutes beforehand, they knew that there was somebody out there that was questionable, and they should have told the Secret Service people that were in charge of Trump, here's the problem, where they could have shut it down, or they could have said, he's not coming out yet.
Right.
If it'd been another 5-10 minutes, so what? They'd have gotten beyond that. Last thing, road rage. The state number one was California. And I mean, they get backed up, and people get mad, and I can see that. Then they had Missouri, Utah, Oklahoma, Colorado, Mississippi, Indiana, Virginia, New York, Maryland. Texas didn't make it, and they didn't interview me. I might have put Texas in there, but you'll see somebody cut in front of somebody, and they'll get to flashing their lights. Mm-hmm. I just figure in Texas that at least half the people are armed. Mm-hmm. So if you get them in a real crazy moment and you make them mad and they kill you, they can just put on the tombstone, the other guy was wrong. The other guy was wrong. It's his fault.
Yeah.
You're still dead. So it doesn't help you. Coming back to the saying of the day, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And it could be a man also. All generalizations are bad, including this one. But the BuzzFeed came up with some pretty funny deal. I still think the funniest was the lady that after told her to move out, and he left for the day and didn't come back till night. She took all the light bulbs, including the refrigerator light bulb, took them all out. So he probably didn't have a good time that night trying to figure out what was going on. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.